You're listening to the Recipe Podcast, episode number 14.
Welcome to The Recipe. Chef Charles Carroll is a culinary gold medalist, author of 3 books, and past president of the World Association of Chef Societies. He has produced shows, fed our troops in Afghanistan, and is executive chef at one of the busiest country clubs in the United States. Chef Charles has cooked thousands of recipes, but none as important as the one he'll be sharing with you today, as his incredible friends unveil their recipe for a successful life. And now, your host, Chef Charles Carroll.
Welcome into the Recipe Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Celebrity Secrets to a Successful Life. I'm your host, Chef Charles Carroll, calling in from beautiful Houston, Texas. And what a great day, what a great show we have for you today. I am joined in studio with the Recipe Podcast producer, the lovely and talented Jessica Cowan. Say hey, Jess.
Well, good morning.
And Jess is back in town. And in the other corner, we have the Recipe Podcast editor. And so I don't even know where that voice came from. Recipe Podcast editor and sound engineer, the one and only Phoenix Phil Rosa. Say it ain't so, Phil.
Yo, what's up?
We have an amazing chef in-house and calling in today, and we got you guys asked out of bed pretty early.
Yeah, about an hour to get here.
Yeah, how's that traffic? You like that?
Yeah, it's so wonderful.
Yeah, you like that?
Lovely.
Yeah, an hour, huh? An hour?
Yeah.
That's
A little
Houston.
over, actually.
Yeah, actually a little over.
6 million people
Waze is a liar. Don't listen to Waze. Use that app.
don't invest in Waze.
Yeah.
Is that your message for today? But hey, let's. We don't want to keep this chef waiting too long, so let's pay a few bills here to get started. If you're a first-time listener out there, thank you so much for that, and I hope you listen in lots more. We have so many amazing guests coming in the next few weeks. It's just we're blessed and some special people. So keep listening, and our people that keep coming back. We see the numbers. Did you guys know we have listeners from India now? I saw from India.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and Asia. I saw a couple from Asia. So we are going worldwide. We're going around the globe. So we're excited about that. So if you love what you're hearing and you love what we're saying, please review, rave, rank, and subscribe and share. We love you for doing that. You know, tell a mother, tell a friend, tell a brother, tell a father, whoever you think will enjoy the show. That's how it works, folks. And if you like the show, keep sharing and telling people about it. And Jess, what do people need to do that we need them to do so we can keep coming back here?
Well, go find us on our Facebook page, Chef Charles Carroll, and then also on Twitter and Instagram at Chef Carroll. That's with a double R and a double L. Go like and share and tell your friends all about us. Cool.
And Phil, I think that you got some stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to be giving away free stuff. For every share, comment, and iTunes review, your name's going to be put into a drawing, and you're going to get some free merchandise from Stove Monkey Apparel.
Wow, some swag.
Yeah. At the end of each month, we're going to pick a winner. So go to our social media page and share away. Well, now we got that out of the way.
Wow, winner, chicken dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were giving away some stuff, and we have some cool stuff for those T-shirts, huh, Jess?
Yeah, we do. Actually, on our website, we have all sorts of Stove Monkey gear at www.chefcharlescarroll.com. Check out some T-shirts and maybe purchase a few. Or if those aren't what you like, Stove Monkey has their own website. You're welcome to go peruse their entire stock.
Stove Monkey. Cool name, cool guys, and they've been good to the show. And you know what? Who else is really good to the show, which we have some exciting news that we can't quite share yet, is Benny Keith Distributors. And I just want to put that out there, and we'll tell people why later. But Benny Keith is amazing and wonderful people. So Jess, Phil and I have been worried sick about you. You were out of town.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, you didn't call, and no flowers, nothing. So is your weekend okay? Is everybody okay?
Oh, yeah. It was a wonderful weekend.
All right. So you were at a wedding or some sort, huh?
Yes. My 2 best friends from college actually got married this weekend to each other.
Friends.
Yes. Boy and girl. Love them.
Okay.
Cat and Adam. not that we don't love the same-sex marriage as well, but
not the same family either.
No.
Okay.
No, but it was an amazing wedding, and it was actually really interesting. They did it all themselves, from planning, from executing everything. The poor bride was running around in her dress barefoot up until walking down the aisle. So
I bet that's hard.
It was hard, but it was really impressed. You know, we see a lot of weddings at the club and what we do, and that was actually one of the better weddings I've seen done, and especially to do it all by themselves. It was gorgeous venue, gorgeous decor. It was a great wedding, and I'm really happy for them.
Wow, good for you. And truck handled it okay. Nobody drank too much or anything like that.
No, we were fine. Actually, it was really cool. The groom brewed his own beer for the wedding.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he works at a brewery out of Colorado, and they allowed him to brew about 10 barrels. And
what did he call it?
The wife is always right.
That's good.
Suck up. Get out of here.
And it was actually really good. I mean, I was surprised yet not, but no, it was a great beer, great wedding.
Well, Phil and I we're sick, and we're just glad you're back home safe.
Oh yeah, we made it okay.
Welcome you in studio today, so that's good. We missed you. And Phil, so you're driving. You're loving that drive, huh, bud?
Oh yeah. I always love driving in that early.
Well, you can. Yeah. Well, you can thank our guests are this amazing, one of the most brilliant chefs in the country today, and you know he's had what a storied life and a storied career. You know, I think that the challenge is what I guess could be described as the challenging, start of life. You know, he scratched his way to success, and he really did an amazing job. I mean, we're going to hear that story. So
definitely. I guess I kind of had like the same kind of hard way into life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about 1824, I had a few problems with run-ins with the law. But
1824. I'm sorry, the year. Or you mean the age range?
Yeah, I'm a very old person. I'm very old. No, between the ages of 18 and 24.
Lost me there too.
Yeah.
But I overcame some things. We'll save that for another show.
Oh yeah.
But
it sounds like a whole show.
Yeah, probably.
Well, good for you, man. I guess I didn't know all of that, but we're glad. I know that you had a great start to your radio career, and we're proud to have you here on the Recipe Podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, this is radio, right? Is it radio? I know it's a podcast.
It's pretty much radio.
It's our own radio station.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I feel cool.
And it's a big thing that's going on, and I've been staying busy. And
how about your book? How's that going?
Oh man, I tell you what, as you know, we launched it last week, and I wasn't prepared for. I've been working on it for 7 years, and the launch was huge, but I just wasn't prepared for all the support and friends and reaching out on Twitter and everything, and so that's coming out. And we got a book signing coming up this weekend, and we got rumors of a movie.
Yeah, I want to know more about this movie.
Yeah, I can't wait to. I don't want to jinx myself, but we got a beautiful an actor and a son team that own their own production company, and they're interested in, so we got some good
That's
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good story.
Yeah, and then I got some good news. I'm teasing. I'm just dropping these teases here, but this weekend was a fantastic weekend. We're working on a TV show. And it sounds like it is funded, but we will know more this week. So
just adding to the list of to-dos.
Yeah. So So
come on, Jessica.
Yeah, come on. And well, you were out of town, so you missed all that.
I love it. Come back to work, and we've got a whole page.
All right, here we go. So you know what? We're gonna take a really quick break here because I'm too anxious to get my buddy in here. So we're gonna take a real quick break, and we'll be right back.
Today's episode of the Recipe Podcast is brought to you by Stove Monkey, apparel made by chefs for chefs. To check out their entire collection, you can go to chefcharlescarroll.com. If you rate us or subscribe to us on iTunes, drop us a line and like us on Facebook. If you do anything to let us know that you're listening and like it, we're going to put your name into a drawing and you will get a chance to win some free gear from Stove Monkey at the end of each month. And if you're interested in purchasing Chef's latest book, The Recipe, a story of loss, love, and the ingredients to greatness, head on over to his website at chefcharlescarroll.com.
Welcome back to the Recipe Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Chef Charles Carroll, your host, and the lovely Jessica in studio. Say hey, Jess.
Hi.
And Phoenix Phil. Say hey, Phil.
Hey.
So we're all in-house, in studio. We can't wait to get started. We have an award-winning culinary and famous restaurateur that's on the line, ready to share his story with us today. He's worked with some of the most famous chefs in our world today. These amazing icons. He's had the privilege to work with. He's been on just about every TV show as a competitor and a judge. He's been on Oprah. He's been on Iron Chef America, Top Chef, an amazing amount of shows there. And every newspaper or TV show, U.S. Today, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, you name it, he's done. It's been there. At the same time, he's involved with he has his own company, Tramonto Cuisine, and Home on the Range restaurant group that he works with Chef John Svolt. He's partners with. and he manages to stay balanced with his family, church, and charity. So I think that's something that we can learn from. His first job, which was described as a challenging start to life, Rick scratched his way to success, and his first job was with Wendy's. And I know that Rick is proud of that and his relationships with Wendy's today. He has 6 books out. Butter, Sugar, Flour, Eggs is the first one. American Brasserie, Musée, and True, Fantastico, Steak and Fries, in Scars of a Chef. This is a chef that really needs no introduction, but I'm just so proud to call him a dear, dear friend. Chef Rick Tramonto, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. It's very exciting. I'm very proud of you and what you're doing, and your journey has just been super impactful for me. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm getting goosebumps just talking to you, Rick. I mean, we shared some really special times together, a lot of charity dinners, but I think you'd probably agree that the most amazing time we had together experience was Afghanistan.
No doubt. It was absolutely life-changing, and I certainly appreciate being included in that. And it was, it was one of those moments in your life where you're like, yeah, this is what it's about right here.
Yeah, it's just, really puts things into perspective what those ladies and gentlemen are doing for us overseas, and so we could live our life the way we can here. So we're all grateful that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's so extraordinary that they still keep in touch. I mean, I still get these great emails from, the folks that we hung with there and that protected us and that we cooked with, and really kind of forged some special, internet friendships, if you will, which I really hold near and dear. It's very cool.
Yeah. So Rick, I skimmed the surface on your life. Why don't you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, I think especially name this show is the recipe, and the recipe for life, and the accolades and all the stuff, I call it, all the stuff is well documented. I think it's so much less about the stuff and more about the journey, and more about what is the impact that God has for your journey and for me. So I try to really hold some of the the accomplishments and all the stuff, at a different place than I hold the journey. So, I grew up in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York, in a very traditional Italian family, but yet not so traditional because I was an only child growing up. My dad went to prison when I was 15, and at that point, my mom was a cleaning lady and was a lunchroom lady at a city school. And there wasn't really a lot of options at that point when your world comes crashing down as a young teenager. And, I think at that point there were some decisions to be made, whether I was going to even finish high school, and really made the call not to finish high school and to go right into the workforce, because we had lost everything at that point. We had lost our home. We had lost everything. And me and my mom were kind of starting over in a single apartment. So there was actually in 1977, there was a new fast food restaurant opening in Rochester and upstate. And I went and knocked at the back door. Just, the options were slim. I could probably go work at a gas station at that time and pump gas and clean windshields, which would have been fine. I could have went and worked at a fast food restaurant. I just really needed some income to help our situation. And it was a restaurant called Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburgers. It was the first Wendy's that they were opening in upstate New York. So Dave Thomas and Dick Fox were still on the scene. They were still opening stores throughout the East Coast, and Dick Fox, who's still a dear friend today, who has probably the largest Wendy's franchise in the world still, who started with Dave, answered the back door, and I was pretty humbled by him saying, even inviting me into the back door, saying the first thing I said is, look, I don't have a high school diploma. I have zero cooking experience, and I just need a job. And I certainly will not let you down if you give me an opportunity. And another gentleman sat down and introduced himself as Dave Thomas, and proceeded to tell me his story growing up as an orphan. And, really at the end of a 2-hour interview that I never expected to get that kind of time, I got the job, and it changed my life. It changed the direction of my life as far as, this is not only a job, but it certainly could be a career path, because I could literally start at the bottom and work my way all the way through.
Well, that's amazing. And how cool is it that you're still connected with the people at Wendy's, and I mean, that's a great story. Now, so living at home and your dad, that must have been real tough, coming home and helping your mom and making ends work, huh? That was a tough go.
Yeah, it was a tough go, but you didn't know it was a tough go. You're so young, and sometimes you just look at what's in front of you. And I think one of the blessings that I have in my life is tenacity, and to be able to just keep, focused on the task at hand, and kind of plow through it and let all the peripheral distractions go away. Sometimes to a fault, I mean, as I finished up Wendy's, I got into a restaurant called the Scotch and Sirloin. And from there, had the ability to go to Manhattan, and really left my mom at that point as soon as I was of age, as soon as I was 19, 20 years old. She said, go make a life for yourself. I've done what I could do, and you've done what you could do here. So go make a life for yourself. So packed my stuff, went to Manhattan in 82. And it was a very exciting time in the culinary world, come to find out, 32 years later, that guys like Alfred Portali and Jonathan Waxman and Larry Forgione and the Tavern on the Green and all this exciting food was happening through the 80s in Manhattan. And I walked in the middle of it, and again, started at the bottom as a prep cook, and, spent 8 years in New York and worked through the 80s in Manhattan, which was an interesting time, and was distracted at certain times with substance and drugs and alcohol. And there's a lot of access and excess in New York, but had the opportunity to kind of get through that and work through some of that, and made full circle back to met my first wife, Gail Gand, who's a pastry chef, and she was from Chicago. That's how I ended up in Chicago. And we ended up back in Chicago and got an opportunity to work for a wonderful company called Let Us Entertain You and Rick Tramonto, and did that for a few years. But the thing that was missing at that point, Charles, which is the most fascinating part of when I look back, is I still had this hole in my career where all the great chefs that I had worked for, I wanted to work for the guys who they worked for. And all those guys were in Europe, and there was no way I had the means or the connections or the funds to get to Europe. And I remember going to Rich Melman and saying, after being here for 4 years, I'm very restless, and there's something missing. It's like in your spirit, when you know that something's missing or a void in your life, it kind of haunts you a little bit. And you'll never be sometimes as good if you don't do this or do that. Even if it's not true, you still have to have that peace within yourself that you've done that. So Rich helped me, land my first job in London, England, and went to a place called Stapleford Park Hotel in Leicestershire, England. And it really blew the doors wide open, because at that point I was really able to, going to Wendy's was like, living and working in Rochester was like going to culinary high school. Going to New York was like culinary college, but grad school was missing. What was grad school? Grad school was Europe. So getting there, working with Pierre Gagnère and Raymond Blanc and Michel Girard and Alain Chappelle, and the list goes on, those doors open for stages or works or study. That kind of really, when I came back to the U.S. at that point, it was very different, because of going back to Let Us Entertain You, wanting to have the ability to do my own restaurant or to at least head up a kitchen. It was magic, because then everything just started to fall into line. And then I did a little restaurant in Evanston called Trio, which really was our first breakout of, getting accolades and recognition and the ability to really create your own stuff. And then the books started to come, and Gail had gotten her show on the Food Network, and things really started to move forward. But again, you get blindsided by life.
Yeah.
We had our first child, and you become all encompassing to the business, and you start to lose yourself. And after 15 years of that, it got very destructive, and I lost a marriage, I lost a restaurant, and things just became very negative in the industry for me. And it took some time to turn it around, but True came along, and True was certainly a light at the end of the tunnel for me to do some good work with some better people that were a little that were much more grounded and had much more wisdom than I. So they really were able to speak in my life full circle, and that was a special time.
That's awesome.
Wow. So going back to your dad a little bit, having a father go to prison when you were 15, I mean, to me, that just seems like it would be a huge impact on your growth and how you move forward and kind of even moving into that. I know your involvement with Angel Tree. I'd like to hear about the impact your dad had on you and how you got involved with a charity like that.
Yeah. My dad was a good guy. He did the best he could with what he had at the time. He came from nothing and from a very difficult upbringing as well. And we sometimes we have to break that curse in our life. And, I was really lucky enough to do that for my kids. When I look at where my kids are, I have 3 boys, and, they're all brilliant, and they all had great education and great opportunity. But I really would tell them, you are blessed to be a blessing to others. Now, how are you going to do that? So let me show you what the flip side of your life is. So we would go to, neighborhoods like Inglewood in Chicago, which is a very tough, high murder, high gang area. We would do backpack giveaways and barbecues for 6, 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids that would be walking through these, very tough neighborhoods. But again, I think what my kids saw was these kids didn't see anything else. So they would throw their little backpack on and march through the neighborhood like they own the place, walking by crack dealers and shootings and all of that. But they were kind of numb to it because that was their world. So what I was trying to show my kids was, like with my dad, it was the same thing. You kind of peripheral some of it and put it on a bookshelf, if you will, and you kind of look straight forward. And that was the epitome of Angel Tree. Angel Tree for me was now going into prisons and finding kids that had parents that were incarcerated, that were living with one or the other parent or their grandparents, and through my church, Life Changers International, really started to get heavily involved in that and sponsoring, 10, 12, 20, 25 kids, where you would go visit those kids on their birthday as an advocate or a bridge for their parents, bring them gifts, just speak, talk to them about the Gospels, talk to them about themselves, and see where you can step in and be an advocate at some point, Christmas, Thanksgiving, take them on a weekend vacation of someplace that they would never ever get the opportunity to go, but to also give them hope, because once, in any world, once you start to lose hope is where it gets very dark. So if you can continue to shine some light on hope that there is another way, because me included didn't know anything else at that age. This was it. This was my life. This was my hand. This was my the cards that I was dealt. I guess everybody has a life like this. Well, It's the same with those kids. You bring. I'll never forget bringing. I'll never forget going to visit my dad in prison and talking to him through a glass on a phone. But then the recap of that is going with other kids to visit their parents, to talk to them through a glass on a phone.
Wow.
And when you would walk away from that,
that's hard.
there's 2 sets of emotions. There's super anger, and then there's super sadness. And to try to take those 2 emotions and make them positive is very sobering. It's very challenging at times. But the thing that I found that always would break through is, hey, there's always tomorrow. God is good. And, what are you going to do now? So, your life can be, happy and joyful and productive in society. What is it that you want to do, and how can I help do that? That is really the give back, is how do you get them how did I get out of my environment? How do we get them out of their environment? Because they may not even know that there's an alternative life other than the life that they're in.
Right.
It's amazing.
Was there ever a time in your life where you thought, man, I am just not going to make it? And what was your recipe to get out of it?
Well, for me, it's Jesus Christ. I mean, it was, that's a very personal thing to say, but that's my answer. I don't have another answer.
Yeah.
My answer was my faith through Christ and my salvation, and my realization of how God is good and what he's done for me, and that he died for me and rose, and all the gospel and the good word, the gospel meaning, the good news. So understanding, finding a church, finding a pastor, finding people around me that would just continually speak into my life. It's very humbling. It's very sobering. Don't take meekness as weakness. How about that? That could be our saying for this show is, people that come in that are very quiet and meek and that listen before they talk, or sometimes they'll listen and not even talk. There's some real grace in that behavior. And I do a lot of that these days. I do a lot of listening, and, you have to be careful because people take it as, you're arrogant or you're closed or you're whatever. But, when you're trying to step into a dark area on a daily, weekly basis to help others, it's very sobering. That's all I can say. It's very humbling that I'm being used, by God to help others and to try to help their life be better.
Well, God bless you there, man. I mean, you got a lot going on with a home on the range, and then there's I think there's 2 restaurants there, and probably more coming down the road. And you're opening up something right now, right?
Yeah, November 14th in Chicago with Rich Melman and Let Us Entertain You. It's in the old historical Ambassador East Hotel. It used to be called the Pump Room. And in the Pump Room, it's a very famous booth called Booth 1, and all the celebrities would eat there, from Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Liza Minnelli, like the list, Judy Garland. I mean, there's walls and walls in the Pump Room of black and white photos of all these celebrities. And matter of fact, Phil Collins wrote a whole album called No Jacket Required, and that's about the Pump Room and him not being able to get into that dining room one night because he didn't have a jacket. So there's great history. It's a 1940s, 1950s supper club, and we're going to take it, and we took the name Booth 1 from the famous booth. We're going to modernize it and have some fun with it, and it's in the Gold Coast of Chicago, right off the lake, and it's in a hotel. It's breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm an executive chef in each restaurant, and there will be an executive chef at this restaurant. So, I live in Chicago. My kids are in Chicago. My world is in Chicago. So, I usually come to New Orleans every 5 weeks for a week, and then I go back for 3, 4, 5 weeks to Chicago, and then I go to Jackson, Mississippi, where we have Seafood Revolution in Jackson for a week, and come back. So, and then, touring the books, as you know now, and doing book signings and doing food and wine events. But I've cut a lot of that out at this point, because when I do have windows of time, I think the second half of my life, I want to be very different than the first half of my life. And the second half of my life really would be to as much full-time ministry as possible, and to be able to, if I was independently wealthy, I would be done, even though I love to cook and I love my industry. But it would be full-time into helping people in the industry with either substance abuse, or that are trying to get into culinary that may never have the opportunity, or just full-time youth pastoring or whatever that may be, to be able to, bring some light to some dark places.
And man, I remember True Restaurant. I mean, I've dined there twice before I even had the opportunity to get to know you as a friend. And that was one of the most amazing restaurants I've ever been in. The staircase of caviar, and your wife working there. Now, she was your wife when you started that restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me been, culinary partners, and we've been married for a long time. And when we had split up, we remained partners and friends and had a child, Gio, together. And the most ironic thing and the most blessed thing is the girl who I've been married to for 15 years, I met at Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburgers in 1977. She was the sandwich girl at the burger guy. And she had a whole life of her own, and I had a whole life of my own, but God had brought us back into the fold about 15 years ago. And my wife, Eileen, is certainly a gift and an angel from God, and who has a heart for, she does a lot of stuff with our church with abused women and, girls that are caught in trafficking and things like that. So, we have such a common friendship in marriage, but we also have the same heart for God and for youth.
Mm-hmm. Rick, you've got a few tattoos, right? Is that a question or a statement? Well, I was going to ask about tattoos because, back in the day, chefs were known for not really, being really clean cut, looking real nice. And not that you don't look nice, because I think your tattoos are awesome.
So he has tattoos.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that the listeners know that, because they can't see them,
Oh, okay.
But has your tattoos have they ever kept you back from any job? Has anybody ever said anything about them? Like, well, you're going to have to cover those up when you come into our kitchen or when you're working or doing this and that.
No, I had tattoos before tattoos were cool. And, they, my tattoos are really, each piece of 34 tattoos are a time in my life, whether they're scriptures, whether they're culinary, whether they're cities I've worked in, whether they're family, things. I mean, it's just a story, and it's just something that started in 81, and every couple of years I would get the urge to get something else that had meaning to me. There's not, I didn't in a drunken stupor go get, some Metallica tattoo or something like that. They were very well, even though I'm a big Metallica fan.
Yes, you are.
They're not. Yes, they're not. They were very thoughtful. They were very thought out, and there's a reason for each piece. But I did get turned away for having a blonde mohawk and 6 earrings. I mean, that was
so that was a limit.
That's away from that more than I got turned away for the tattoos.
Tattoos, okay, not so much the mohawk.
We got to get a picture of that.
I got to throw one other thing out. The best part about my gig is when I look back into True, and I look back into Trio, and I look back into my journey, and I look at the folks that came out of the kitchens that I was blessed to be leading at the time, is extraordinary. And that's the legacy, like not the Rick Tramonto legacy. It's the, Jared Van Camps and Chris Pandels and Graham Elliott Bowles and, Tim Grahams. And you go down the list, and me and Gail were at an event a few weeks ago, and we were having this conversation of, 20, 30 chefs that came out of True's Kitchen over 10 years and over Trio's and out of 5 years. They all have like multiple restaurants. They're all rock stars. They're all, have television shows and multiple awards and books. And that's the give back too. When you look back and go, man, that was a special time with those guys. But not only that, they really heard what you were saying. And I'm sure, Charles, you have huge impact on your team that goes out into the world, and they always have you in their head. What did Chef Charles say? How did Chef Charles do it? What would he do? How, what? And I'm a pink touch organized freak that, everything has to be neurotically labeled and organized. And I walk into their kitchens, and it's like, wow, you were all listening.
Yeah, good for you, man. I mean, that is pretty awesome when you have an opportunity to touch some lives and touch some hearts. And as you know, I'm a big fan, brother. So Rick, we're kind of up against it right now, but I just want to ask you one more question before we slide into the Chef's Apprentice segment. If you could go back 15, 20 years in your life, what would be the advice you'd give yourself?
Don't forget yourself. I lost myself in the industry. I did not take time my life to stay healthy, to spend time developing my other skills, my spiritual skills, my physical skills, my mental skills. It was all about work, and it was all about the kitchen. And I lost myself for probably 15 years. Probably half of my career was spent 7 days a week, 18, 16 hours a day. And it hurt a lot of people around me. It alienated a lot of relationships. And I think the one thing that I would to say, other than, yes, you need to put in the time. You need to do all of these things that you hear from every single chef. Don't go too fast. Make sure you learn all the basics. It's been said 100 times, but I never hear leave time for some of the other stuff. Leave time for yourself. Leave time to make sure you're healthy physically, spiritually, emotionally. The time flies so fast that all of a sudden you're in your 20s in the industry and you don't care about your 30s and your 40s and your 50s because it's so far away, and in a blink you're there. But then when you turn and look back and you're like, yeah, what would I have done different? What would I have told a younger me? And I always come back to that same thing. I wish I would have spent, a little more time with my kids, a little more time at my church, a little more time with, somebody who wanted me to sign their book, but there was already 50 people in line. So I felt like I needed to, rush them through the line, but they really wanted to tell me that their dad was in prison, or that they had crisis in their life, and that there was some, positive effect that I had. And you just got to make time for people. It's painful sometimes, but you just have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah. Well, God bless you there. And those are certainly some.
So when you're out there on that book tour, Charles, and there's 150 people in line waiting to sign that book and get their photo with you, just remember that somebody's got to say something to you, and you just need to take that extra minute and listen.
It's all right. I'll be there to remind them.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for being on the show, Rick. And if you could just hang on, we're going to slide into a quick break, and we have a great Chef's Apprentice segment that's a lot of fun, and it's actually a chef from your hometown. So thanks again for a wonderful segment, and ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Today's episode of the Recipe Podcast is brought to you by Recipe Productions. They are the creative minds that bring you the Recipe Podcast, as well as Chef Charles Carroll's latest book, The Recipe, a story of lost love and ingredients to greatness. If you'd like to purchase this book or his other books, Leadership Lessons from a Chef and Tasting Success, head on over to his website at chefcharlescarroll.com.
It's that time again, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time again, the Chef's Apprentice segment. The Recipe Chef's Apprentice segment was created to showcase the young entrepreneur who has found early success chasing their dreams. What does that mean? It means they had the courage to jump off the cliff, praying that their blood, sweat, and tears, this research that they have, this parachute magically opens. And that's exactly who we have on the show today, ladies and gentlemen. We have an amazingly talented chef. His name is Chris Roth. And listen to this. He spent the first 8 years of his professional life between, France and New York. That's not too shabby. I haven't spent some time in France. That's pretty cool. He joined the Ritz-Carlton team in Palm Beach. And I got to believe that most of our listeners out there know the reputation of Ritz-Carlton. And to be a part of that team is pretty special. And Palm Beach is a very exclusive area, so that's awesome. And then he kind of crossed the street over to the Everglades Club in Palm Beach, and he was there with a very dear friend of mine, Chef Peter Timmons. And we want to send some prayers to Peter. We wish he was still with us today, but that's real emotional for me because Peter was a longtime bud. But one thing I do know, if Chris was working there, A, he's a top-notch chef, and B, he learned a lot when he was with Peter. And then, and we're linked once again because he's the executive chef at the renowned Oak Hill Country Club in Rochester, which is one of the top properties in the United States, and I think it's one of 7 properties that have done all 7 major golf tournaments, and including the Ryder Cup. So the golf is amazing. It's world known, and it's a very special place. And Chris is he is the guy who's brought the food program to a whole new level. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Roth, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, Chef. How are you today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm so happy to that you're on the show, and I'm happy that we had a chance to meet several times now, and I'm a big fan of your food, and I'm just glad you're here. So
thank you.
Yeah, get us started, man. Tell us how a little bit about you.
Well, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and then I grew up in South Florida. I started working at restaurants in high school, and that's when I enrolled into culinary school. Worked for a French chef while I was in culinary school, and he sent me to France, and that's how I got to France, and I did my apprenticeship in France.
Yeah, tell us about those chefs.
Yeah, they were fun.
Yeah, Pierre Garnier,
they were
right?
tough. Oh, yeah, I was at Pierre Garnier's, Verger's. I went to Roger Verger for a year. I spent a year there, and got to learn so much and work with the ingredients was just amazing. The talent on the teams was unbelievable, and just in an atmosphere of continued learning and growing every day. Then I found myself traveling back to New York City, and then to South Florida, and now following your footsteps at Oak Hill.
That's a great property, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, great property and a special membership, and it's all pretty cool. I was really emotional when I left there, but I'm glad. I'm proud and glad that we're connected, and that you're there now to keep the culinary pride going, and that means a lot.
Thank you, Chef.
Yeah, so I mean, you got some pretty amazing. I mean, to have the experiences that you had at such a young person. I mean, these are rock star opportunities that you worked at. What's some advice that you would give some of our listeners out there, and that they may or may not be in the culinary field, but they may be thinking, they're searching for that great opportunity. What advice would you give them, given the roadmap that you've had? I mean, you worked for Hall of Famers. So what advice would you lend them?
I think one of the biggest things that I would say is to be confident. Be confident in who you are and your abilities, and don't second guess those. Once you're in an area, whether it's a restaurant, I relate to being in a restaurant. Once you're in the kitchen, you know what to do. You know how to get things done. Just make things happen. Be confident in who you are, and good things will happen to you. Though people will notice that, and from there they'll ensure trust into you. They'll build with you. So I think confidence is the biggest thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you could go back, I mean, you're a young guy, but if you could go back 15 years or 18 years, what would you tell yourself?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Don't change anything. No.
Yeah, right.
I think I would tell myself to be patient and to take the opportunities for what they are and take them as far as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, patience is an important key there. So what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, along the way, what chef, and not necessarily you have to name a chef, but what was some impact that you had from a mentor or a situation that had a serious impact on your life in the way that you decided to take your road? So there's something that someone said, or a situation that you were in, or where was the aha moment for Chris Roth that said, you know what, this is my time? Yes,
I think my aha moment was while I was in culinary school, working at a small French restaurant in Delray Beach, Florida. I worked with a French chef named Eric, who I continue to keep in contact to this day. He was the one who really set the tone for my career. He's the one who basically said, if this is what you want to do, then you have to be serious about it. You have to stay focused on what you're doing, and you have to be ready for what it's going to throw at you and the road that you're going to travel. he's actually the one who sent me to France for the first time and had that trust in me. I think that would be the moment for me that really was an impact moment, spending some time with him in the kitchen.
Yeah, kind of light bulb went off and said, hey, I think this is really going to be my calling, right?
It was, definitely.
Yeah. Now, you have a beautiful family from what I understand.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. How do you balance all that?
I've got it. I have an amazing wife. She's so understanding, and she supports me. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without her, that's for sure. We have a little 8-year-old boy, and she does everything. She balances everything for me. I think the one thing that I do try to do is understand the balance and trust my team when I'm not there. As when I was trusted when my chef wouldn't be in the kitchen. The balance is the hardest part in this business. But yeah, it's tough, and you know this more than anybody else. The balance. You're a busy guy, so it's just about finding the person who understands what you're doing and your dreams, and will support your dreams and your goals. Yeah,
that's right, man. It comes around, goes around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in your as your maybe your first position, either as a sous chef or exec sous chef, or you kind of your first position as a manager. What was one of the first lessons that you learned? Like, gosh, I better not do that again. It was a great first time responsibility manager job. What was one of your first lessons, if you can recall?
I think one of my first lessons was patience. Everyone's going to make mistakes, and you have to turn those mistakes into a teaching moment. How do you get the staff to understand what it is you're looking for and how to achieve that through patience and understanding? Once you find the balance of that, I feel like teaching is inevitable, and you can teach anything as long as you can express yourself and feel good about what you're saying to the individuals. Right.
And now you got the lead range. You're in charge of your own team. You're executive chef at Oak Hill, and obviously you can't stop. So what do you do right now to inspire yourself every day? I mean, you have to keep. You can't be stagnant. So what do you do to research? And because I've seen your food on Facebook, man, it's awesome. What do you do to continue to inspire yourself?
A lot of research and development through networking, through chef conferences. One of my favorite is Instagram. It's amazing what you can see out there, and the picture of the food and everything like that. It's unbelievable. And the other thing that I do is I get the team involved in the menu writing. I want their ideas. I want that's what chefs are looking for, is the young culinary talent that has a lot of ideas. And when you find them, you got to tap into those resources. And that's kind of our recipe at Oak Hill.
Yeah, and that's when you get the staff vested in the project. They get behind you better, right?
Absolutely.
So you gave us the one thing that you want everybody to do is be confident and don't second guess yourself. But we're kind of up against it. So what's one thing the young person should not do? Do you have any suggestions there they should not do as they're getting ready to chase their dream?
They should not be not focused. I think if they're chasing their dreams, then you just got to jump in and go all for it. Don't be afraid. Yeah. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid because when you're young enough, you have plenty of time to bounce back, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to fail. Yeah. That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're so proud to have Chris Rock. Chris, we're going to have you on again sometime because there's too much to talk about. Where can people find you and find all your cool food? On Instagram at CCROTH78. And I'm on Facebook, but really Instagram's our way to go. We're promoting it. And if you do a hashtag OakHillCC, you'll see a lot of the pictures that we're doing as well.
I didn't know about that one. Okay, I got to go find that one as well. So that about wraps up today's episode of the Recipe Podcast. We thank you so much for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you for doing that. And a big thank you, ladies and gentlemen, to Chef Rick Tramonto and Chef Chris Roth from Oak Hill Country Club. Two amazing chefs, both, Chris had, as you know, got to start at Oak Hill in Rochester, and that's where Rick started out as well. So remember the words that Rick Tramonto said. It's all about the journey, not the stuff. Just look at what's in front of you and shine the light on some hope. And the last one, don't forget about yourself. So listeners, thank you so much for first time. Thank you. And long time. Thank you so much. And please rate and review and rank and subscribe and share on iTunes or Google Play or wherever else you download the program. Share and rank us. That will help us. Tell your mother, tell a brother. You know the story and how to do it. That helps us bring the show to you. So that's how it works, folks. And love you for that. And Rick, thank you so much, man. Rick, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thank your team. And I really appreciate the time.
All right, brother. And, oh my gosh. Rick, where can people find you and your websites and your restaurants and all that?
Yeah, TramontoCuisine.com. I'm easy to find. Google me, I'm there.
He'll be the Google and he'll be there with his tattoos. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That ends the another episode of The Recipe. And all remember, you're special, you're great. Make an impact on someone's life today. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into The Recipe Podcast. You can find more episodes at chefcharlescarroll.com. And while you're there, feel free to ask questions or recommend guests for our show. To purchase Chef's latest book, The Recipe, go to theingredientsofgreatness.com. Have an incredible week. We'll see you next time.